What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are going to be talking through tonight's giant 13-game slate. A little, not much of a slate last night. I did okay on DraftKings and didn't do well on FanDuel. But I didn't play a bunch either. It wasn't, it was a 2-game slate. What we're going to do, and it was unfortunate because I even had Fournier right in some things, but didn't have all the right, and a lot of Isaiah Stewart, which we were right about, did really nicely for us, but didn't do well enough. How about you? And then let's jump right into the slate.
I was close only because it turns out that I was right. It turns out that my hope came through and that nobody played Mr. Clay last night.
I had him when he was like 44% owned.
In which one? Not in the smaller stuff.
In the 333.
Oh, I don't have that.
You're talking about FanDuel?
No, in DraftKings.
Oh, he was heavily
really?
Yeah. I played him in both of them, mine, I think.
So he did well. People on Discord were thanking us for that. I ended up breaking even pretty much, just because Clay did well, and everybody else was just kind of whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'm ready for this one. We got the 888 for 250,000. Yep. Bobby's in there. You have more. You have a couple in that one.
3.
Nice.
Sold off a pretty good percentage of it, but I'm ready to attack.
Who cares?
Feel good about it. Yeah, hey man, it's a big tournament. And these are the ones, you know what I mean? You just have to get. You don't need to worry in most spots about too much ownership. There's some spots where you do, but then there's plenty of guys who are all the spend ups are good plays, and they all. I mean, it's hard to differentiate some of these guys. So we'll get into it, but they can't all be owned. That's the one thing that we know for sure.
Well, let's see. Speaking of which, let's get right in there.
Yep.
And there's a zillion games, a lot of different time slots, but right out of the gate, you got Harden and Irving with no Durant, and you have reverse revenge from Spencer Dinwiddie, but it doesn't make too much of a difference because Beal's going to play, I think. And I like Harden. And I like Kyrie, and I just don't think this is the type of slate where I need to go after the LaMarcuses and the whatever the guy, Deshaun Tate, or not Deshaun Tate, what's like whoever the center is, Deshaun something or other.
Duran Sharp, yeah.
Yeah.
LaMarcus Aldridge is back too.
Yeah, or the other guy, the Kessler, or whatever. So for me, it's going to be either Harden or Irving. I think either of them you can make a good case for. And on the Washington side, I got just nothing. So that's where I am in this game.
Yeah, I'm Kyrie 1 on DraftKings for me, Harden 2. On FanDuel, it's Harden 1, Kyrie 2. Just the only thing is keep an eye out for the Brooklyn starting lineup. I don't think that anything's going to be doable really, but there is some potential that a guy, that maybe if Bruce Brown was it's weird what they do with him. Sometimes when they're missing one of their big guys, they'll just go from playing him almost no minutes to playing him 30. But I think it's not the right slate anyway to try and jump on that, especially being the first game. I do think that a good long shot tournament play is Kuzma, but I don't think that it's something I'm probably going to end up with on this slate. I actually I kept running into a 7,800 range in some builds earlier. And I think Kuzma versus Porzingis, if you're stuck exactly in that range, is kind of an interesting conversation. I think both are viable and neither are particularly exciting. But Kuzma does have the ceiling. And by the way, Bradley Beal at 8.9, this is a spot in the past where we would have been all over this, and we just haven't seen the ceiling this year. I'm not saying Bradley Beal's a bad play. There's just too many other plays on the slate for me personally. But it is kind of funny that with more of the offensive load on him than Kyrie's going to have, he's going to be so much lower on. Just throw it out there.
We could do? We could do a big team lineup. We could just play Kyrie and Harden, and then we could have Kuzma and Beal, and then screenshot for a half an hour.
There you go. And have everybody else bust in the end.
That's right. And go and when you go to overtime.
Yeah. So this next game is interesting. What are your thoughts here? Because obviously there's always blowout risk with Orlando. Philadelphia's been playing well too, but you have some reasonable prices on Embiid and Harris and Cole Anthony and Wagner, and we have to figure out about Wendell Carter playing or not. But that's a big, that's big stuff.
My initial look was exactly that. In that I think Cole Anthony's viable, and I think that I think that Embiid, as always, is a really, really good play. And I think that on a slate like this, you could do. I mean, I'm going to probably do a mixture of using optimizers and hand-built stuff because I want to with 13 games, I want to have some correlation. You know, I want to, if I'm going to play Cole Anthony, if I'm going to play Embiid somewhere, may as well play him in the same lineup. You know, so I'm going to do a little bit of that. And likewise, if I am going to throw in a Beal somehow, you know, if I don't want to like get to Beal somehow and just like have another lineup, so I'm going to play Beal. I'll probably want him in like a Kyrie or an Irving lineup. So I'm going to probably be tweaking my normal process to make sure I get a little bit of that. That's kind of my philosophy, you know, as it's developing on these 13 game slates. If one of them, I mean, one of them goes to overtime, you want that one. Yes.
Right.
If you're going to play guys from that game anyway, I mean, you may as well have both of them. That's you know, that's the way I'm going to look at tonight's slate anyway. Right. So for me, nothing fancy really on Philly, just Embiid, honestly, and maybe Cole Anthony from Orlando. You mentioned Wendell Carter. Is he questionable? Is that the story? I probably projected is in right now, but I don't know what that means.
He hasn't played in a long time,
Okay.
and he's really questionable. So if he's out, Bamba is interesting. I actually think that well, I probably wouldn't do it because of the nature of the slate. But if he's out, like, they've been starting Lopez. They haven't been playing a ton of minutes. I don't think I'm going to do it, but you know, he's 3.6 now. So maybe I could at least consider it against Embiid because even if you try to put I don't know, no matter what, it's going to be tough for these guys to match up with Embiid. So I do had a little bit of interest in the bigs because they're going to have to be out there pretty much the whole game between Embiid and Drummond. So I just don't think I'm going to end up doing it on this slate, realistically, to be honest with you.
Okay.
What do you got for Charlotte and Boston?
I mean, another day, another slate, and we could have a 10-minute discussion about Gordon Hayward going back to Boston. But I don't know. I mean, just there's too many options on this slate for me to play anybody from this game. Honestly, I think everybody's priced pretty fairly, and this game is as close to as an X to me as possible. For me, again, if I get to Hayward, I'll just kind of like say wink at him. Okay, that'll be fun. You know, if that actually happens. But that's kind of like narrative after the fact. If I get to that, and then he scores 55 fantasy points, I'm not going to come out and say, "Oh, see, Hayward going back to Boston, no problem." Right. So it's a pretty unappealing game as far as I'm concerned. But I want to do shout out, by the way, to your man from the other day, who a freaking incredible half of fantasy basketball, Miles Bridges. He had like almost 50 fantasy points in the first half. And if they didn't basically take care of business in the third quarter, he could have been on to 80 plus in that game. So that was really, you know, you've been on his talent for quite a while, and everybody loves to show out at New York on Martin Luther King Day, and that was he did a great job of it. Yeah,
no, he's awesome, and they're going to really feel sorry when they end up probably losing him when they could have signed him for what he's going to half of what he's going to make, because he's going to be a restricted free agent. And he's going to be able to sign for 25 or 30 million with somebody because he's like not a superstar necessarily, but a star in the making. Like he's going to be an all-star one day, very, very soon. I love Tatum or Brown. I know I say this like basically every time it feels like, but I'm just telling you, like, I mean, if when the games are close, first of all, you have the best matchup against Charlotte. I think Tatum would be my preferred of the two, but this is like, I mean, it's only been a couple games where we haven't seen one of these guys put up 50 in every spot. And there's definitely upside on that to 70 for both, which they've both flashed this season. And in a ceiling type of matchup when they're not going to be owned, I think they're right in that conversation. And why is Kyrie so much better of a play than Jason Tatum, for example? I don't know that he is. I think that they're both good plays. Don't get me wrong. I think Kyrie was probably going to be in more of my lineups, but not at a 30% owned versus a 6% owned guy or whatever it's looking like right now. And I really think it's a spot where Tatum could have a big game. I'm interested to see whether Marcus Smart plays or not. If he's out, I might take a shot on Horford again on FanDuel or potentially even DraftKings at 5,300. But I don't think that this. I just want to get exposure to the matchup. But at the same time, it feels a little bit wrong to play all the early games when we've got some pretty good stuff coming up. All right, you want to start with Minnesota, Atlanta? Yeah, well, this is obviously one of the games that rates to be pretty juicy. What's the total's got to be over 230, right? I mean, 235.5. Yeah.
and you have some pretty decent built-in value in Atlanta. So I'll go through that. First of all, there's Kongwu at 4,600. Now he got kind of benched or whatever in the either his last game or the one before that. Like the bench just wasn't playing well, so they didn't give him full run. But that they still like him, and I have no problem playing him. And the other one is Deandre Hunter at 4,200. Every time I bring up Deandre Hunter, you kind of shoot me down by saying, well, because Bogdanovich is out. So I think Hunter is more viable now. Again, not a lock or anything like that, but he's certainly viable at 4,200. So I like that. I like Trey at 9,800 in a 235 point total. Danilo, I'm going to let you talk me into or out of that. You always seem to project well. Again, all this is because Capella's out, right? You always project well on a point per dollar basis, but I never seem to get him right one or the other. So I was going to reach out to you on that. And then on the other side of the game, I think Cat is a really, really good play. And if Cat's a good play, I mean, probably other guys are good plays too. I mean, Beverly, I don't know if Beverly's going to play. But
why is that?
I don't know. He played last night. I don't know. Maybe played last night in New York and then now going to Atlanta. I don't. Maybe he is playing. Maybe I'm just hallucinating. One thing I would bring up is that you'll see some kind of weird minutes last night for some people. I happen to have been watching some of that game, and the whole United States of America was in foul trouble for Minnesota.
Yeah.
So don't take whatever came of that game as anything indicative of what's going to happen today. But I think Cat is a really, really strong play. And I would start with those Atlanta guys that I mentioned with Cat and proceed.
Yeah, I see this game a little differently. I definitely think this is a game where you smash the under.
Wow.
I really feel like that's a pretty confident bet.
That's going on the Bobby's bets.
It's going to be on my bets. It'll be up when you guys are done, and so as will my builds.
What's your thesis behind that?
The Minnesota on a back-to-back traveling to Atlanta, who without all of the offensive firepower, you end up with more guys who are slow the game down between or don't shoot as much or as quickly. Deandre Hunter, although one of the reasons why I like him tonight is that he took 17 shots, and I don't know if he's ever taken 17 shots in his career, probably even going back to college. He just doesn't shoot that much, and with these guys out, he has been shooting more, and we failed to realize the jump. Like at the beginning of the season, if he was healthy, he would have been a guy to keep an eye on to make it that next jump to where he really contributes more offensively, sort of like Anunoby did in year 3. They're very similar players, great defenders who sort of just didn't do anything offensively. Now they both shoot the ball a bunch. So I think he's interesting. I also think that I think Trey is fine. I think Cat is fine. It's hard to compare them with the other guys for me. Like is Marcus Smart, by the way, just was ruled out. So like if I think about it just in terms of Tatum versus Cat, I think it's pretty close. And the center spot isn't quite as valuable as it has been some other days. But if you wanted to play either Embiid or Jokic, I think it's viable. But I mean, I'll just point out that Cat's been over 50. He had 50.5. And other than that, it's one time in his last 7 games. Even going back a ways, hasn't really cracked that 60 mark other than outside of the one game against Houston. And it feels on this slate like you'd want to try to find the ultimate ceiling. Now we know he has it in him, but with everybody healthy, and while I keep saying, hey, I like Russell and Edwards, and I actually even think they're okay in this matchup, I think this is a spot where I expect somebody to do it. It just doesn't, it's hard to know who, and it's an early game. So right now I'm leaning a Kongwu Hunter. Probably, I think Herter and Trae Young are both interesting. And on Minnesota's side, it's Cat Beverly. I wouldn't go for Noel and count on the foul trouble unless we have somebody out. But he certainly, none of these guys are bad plays, including Vanderbilt on FanDuel especially, because of the steal block upside, but he didn't even fit close last night. They went back to McDaniels. They were kind of going in and out, actually swapping in and out defense, offense kind of a thing with Russell, McDaniels, and him. Anyway, but yes, one of Edwards, Russell, and Towns probably get there. I don't know if they get there by enough. I don't know if on the back-to-back it's going to be that easy. It was a tough game last night in New York with travel. Just feels like a spot where it could be a little bit of a tough matchup for them. So I actually think Minnesota's a better team than Atlanta, and they've proven they're much better than Atlanta this year. Atlanta, by the way, everybody keeps thinking of them as a good team. They're in danger of not even making the play-in game. They're really bad, but I still think that this situation is going to make me lean towards them and the under in this game. But I don't mind any of those plays. It's just there's a lot of guys to like on this slate. I've got I think 30 guys circled right now, so it's really hard to build a lineup that you love because there's so many good options. Anyway, Portland at Miami. What are you interested in?
So I'm not interested in Portland. They priced up all the guys that had been underpriced when Lillard and McCollum were out, and now McCollum is back. He might not be fully back, but he's back. And these guys are all way too expensive as far as I'm concerned. And not to mention, as we transition to the Miami side with Butler and Bam back, I mean, it just reinforces Miami's defense as like they need it anyway. So it's very difficult to score against them. So combination of the prices and all that with Portland, I'm not interested in that at all. On the Miami side, though, Portland, there's no they haven't been able to guard anybody in a long time, and Bam is his second game back off the layoff. He came back off the layoff. He played his minutes, didn't perform all that great, but I expect him to do continue to improve. And Butler came, he put in 38 minutes, 50 fantasy points, stuff like that. I expect him to have a good game. I don't know about blowout risk or anything like that, but I think both these guys are really are actually pretty in play between Butler and Bam. So I do like both of them, and nothing on Portland.
Yeah, without Lowry, you got to think Butler is a really strong play here. This is another one that I don't like to bet 10-point spreads, but I would bet that Miami covers this. I don't know if I'm going to put that as one of my bets because it's always a little shaky. I mean, even last night, Golden State was up. Were they up 40 or something, 38? And they ended up winning by 16, and it was 15.5 spread, which was one of my.
They know.
Man, I swear that was a weird one. Yeah, I like Bam as a sneaky play. I don't think anybody's going to play him. We saw him get 32 minutes in his first game back. I don't see why it should trend differently. The only thing is that they're controlling the game. I could see it being more like a 28-minute spot, but it's a good spot for them in general. Not that Nurk isn't necessarily an individually good matchup. It's just that Portland plays fast and doesn't play great defense in general.
Right.
And you could run some of their offense through Bam, and Butler are going to pick up some usage from Lowry being out. I don't think I can get to the hero thing. I'm going to just say for you're playing 150, maybe it takes you 75 to get there. But if you're playing 150, play Duncan Robinson in one of them. But you could sort of say about all the Heat wings at some point. It's just that guy could literally get hot and make 10 threes and be less than 0.1% on. All right, Cleveland, Chicago. What do you got?
I don't have anything on Cleveland. Just to confirm that, I mean, Kevin Love would be my favorite of some fishy alternatives. Garland had a good game the other day. I guess Jared Allen's fine at like 2%, but at that position, it's tough. And Chicago though, DeRozan's a good play. Vooch is a good play. Another center. I mean, one of these centers could pop off at 5%. I just don't know exactly which.
They're all going to be like 5. None of these guys are especially interesting, I don't think, to the public.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they all can.
No one's going to play Vooch. Yeah.
But these are all talents. You know what I mean? This is
terrible matchup, but yeah.
So I think Vooch is fine. DeRozan is fine, and really nothing else.
Yeah, the only way I'm playing Vooch is if I get stuck and I want to figure something out.
But you wouldn't be stuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just don't see him as really that viable compared to. I mean, Vooch or Ja Morant without everybody in Memphis. Like, you know what I mean? Vooch or Kyrie, maybe you could make an argument there, I guess, but I don't know. And also in literally the nut low matchup in basketball is playing a big man against Cleveland. So I do understand it. I just am not going to do it. I do think DeRozan. I can't say I'm not going to do it. I may end up having a Vooch lineup because I do. Unlike you, I love Garland. I know the matchup will be tougher with Caruso being back now, but you also have Kobe White who's going to be getting more minutes. And Garland, what else do we want other than a guy who's putting up 50, 54,
Yeah.
53,
Wow,
and 51. So Garland versus Vooch, I think it's an astronomical Garland. Not saying he's gonna outscore him all the time. He has a much higher ceiling. He has the ball in his hands all the time. The only thing that worries me a little bit is the matchup with Caruso coming back. If Caruso wasn't back, I would be all over Garland. I still am going to be very high on him though. And I think that Jared Allen is in play. I have him on FanDuel more as a better play than DraftKings. I think Evan Mobley is in play on FanDuel. But other than that, I'm pretty much done. That's pretty much all I got with this one. But I do really like the Garland play. I want to look. I've been on this kid since he was 18 years old, and I'm not going to change my mind. In the offseason, somebody was asking Steph Curry about who the next superstar is next superstar point guard is, who reminds him at all of himself. And he said, people were shocked that he said Garland. And Garland has done nothing but prove that he's right, and he could actually be an all-star this year. So I'm very into Garland, and I like the DeRozan run back, especially on FanDuel more than DraftKings.
All right, here we go. Memphis, Milwaukee. Some playoff previews, perhaps. I don't know
finals preview, maybe.
What's that?
Maybe a finals preview.
Oh, I keep forgetting the Memphis in the West.
It's funny, Sheets. Everybody I know, including people who are obsessed with the NBA and say forever, they do it all the time. And I'm like,
because I keep forgetting they were used to be in Vancouver, I guess.
Yeah, I know. So that's why they ended up in the West. But it's like, it's so strange. Anyway, I totally feel.
Well, this is a tough finals to get there, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, is it really Memphis, Milwaukee? I mean, like that's something that definitely has possibilities, especially if Morant continues to play the way he's been playing. So you have all these guys from Memphis being out, and you have DeAnthony Melton at 3,700, who's rating to be the most popular player on the slate, because he's projecting to be about 7.5x, and that's why he's going to be the most popular player on the slate. It wouldn't be. I've seen bigger locks fail. Let's put it that way than this. I don't think you have to lock this in. I think that there are roads for a shooting guard at 3,700 to not get there. So I'm not going to have him locked in or anything like that. But I'm not, kidding anybody. I mean, he's certainly rating to be a good play, probably the top play. I will say that there is a little bit of like kind of direct pivot funny business you can do if you felt like it. You could just go ahead and play Tyus Jones if you want.
Tyus Jones is out.
Oh, he's out too?
Yep.
Oh my God. Well, it's becoming a little harder. It's now becoming a little harder to fade him. The only path is maybe they get blown out, I suppose, because now he's going to be forced into all these minutes. I had Tyus Jones.
If they get blown out, he's gonna probably play those minutes.
Oh, I don't know, man. So it's going to be a tough one. I'll go back to Morant, who I think remains just kind of an elite play every day. I like that. And I guess we have to think about some other Memphis guys. I didn't really get to think about it, like the John Concher. He'd be the next guy I guess I would come up with. And then on Milwaukee, sure. Yeah, play Giannis. Sounds fun. Sounds fun playing Giannis and Morant. Like I said, I mean, I wouldn't mind playing them both. And then you could play Melton, Morant, and obviously Melton, Morant, and Giannis. You could certainly do that. I didn't originally get to anything in Milwaukee except for Giannis. But what do you like? What do you like in Memphis if Tyus Jones is out also?
Yeah, so Melton is a really, really, really difficult fade on either side.
Yeah, I guess so.
I really think it's a tough fade. They only have 2 point guards available really now, and there's not like they have other guys who can bring the ball up. Like Zaire Williams is 19 years old. I do like Zaire Williams. He's going to play minutes. I'm surprised this spread is still only 6 in some ways, but then when you see how good just collectively, Memphis probably has the best. I don't know what you want to call it. They seem to like play the best and bringing their effort every single night, more than any team, and they play cohesively even when they've had guys down. It really hasn't affected them much. So I would rank it Melton, Ja, and then I do have interest in one of Concher or Williams. I know because Concher has the bigger like history of putting up more fantasy points, and you could see them play small with Jackson at the 5. So Steven Adams would sort of lose it. That could open up some rebounding opportunities for Concher again, who had 17 the other day. It's tough for me with those guys. I mean, Zaire is a rookie with definitely a wide range of outcomes, but they're going to have to play people minutes, and everybody up to even Brandon Clark should be in play. I'm curious to see what they do with the starting lineup. If they don't start Melton, I like him actually just as much, if not better. I like the lower ownership, but I would imagine I don't know, actually imagine they wouldn't, but they are projected to, what I'm looking at right now. And it does, it's not the right slate probably for it, but I feel like this could be a really good Jaren Jackson game. He's going to get foul trouble. That's the only problem.
Oh, for sure.
But which makes one of he or Brandon Clark. So that's what I've got written, is he or Brandon Clark. Melton as a priority on the slate. Ja as a priority on the slate on DraftKings. And I'll go through some FanDuel plays at the end. On Milwaukee, I don't have interest in anybody with Holiday coming back, but I think that Giannis is fine at low ownership every time. He's low owned, but I could say that about everybody today. But he and Jokic stand out as the pay all the way ups. But I don't really feel like bad playing him ever, so I'm happy to play him, but I don't know that I'm going to. If Holiday doesn't play, I would jump on Bobby Portis on FanDuel. That's all I've got for Milwaukee.
Toronto, Dallas. The only thing I came up with on Toronto is, again, another at that position is Siakam. I mean, he's just not going to be as good as any of the other players around that price range or at that position. But he is 1% owned. I can probably, so you got that. And then on Dallas, I suppose you could always play Luka, and on a slate like this, especially with Harden at the same price. I mean, it's going to be difficult for anybody to play Luka. So he's going to be under 5%. I don't know. Maybe take a shot. I don't know. Anybody else from Dallas I'm looking at is very, very fishy. You mentioned Porzingis. I really didn't quite get to him.
It's not that I like him specifically. I was just saying that I ran into 7,800 as a power.
Okay.
I really need a forward spot, and I just kept running into that spot. So it was kind of just with the way I was building.
Got it.
And KP and Porzingis and Kuzma both stand out as guys who could have ceiling type games, but not my favorite either.
You like Luka? You like anybody in Toronto? What do you like here?
I like on FanDuel. I mean, I want to know if Gary Trent's playing. On FanDuel, either way, I like Scotty Barnes. And it's not an ideal matchup. Dallas has been good defensively playing slow, but Scotty Barnes is 5,500. And that's simply, I mean, he shot 6 of 18 in the last game, still put up 37 fantasy points, had 8 rebounds and 6 assists. Not like he did it with blocks and steals either. It's like, and Dallas will turn the ball over too. I mean, we've seen Luka have those 9 turnover games or whatever it is. I think the weird part about this to me, but there's just so many good plays in the slate, is that take Van Vliet versus Kyrie. I keep using as the example. I think Van Vliet has a higher upside than Kyrie does. I think Kyrie gets to 50 maybe a little more often, so I'm certainly open to the Van Vliet idea here. And I would say Van Vliet, then Siakam for me. But I don't mind the Siakam idea. I mean, these guys are playing 7 billion minutes a night. I even think Anunoby is probably more in play than he's going to get credit for, but it's just hard on this slate to justify. But the guy who I did like, but I don't know what happened with my projections and everything. I guess they're projecting Boucher to play a ton more minutes than I thought. I was going to be back into Precious, but I don't think that I'm going to. I don't know. I feel iffy on that play. They've been giving Boucher a bunch of run. Maybe you could make an argument for Boucher. I just don't think I don't want to do it with Achua back. If he was out, I would definitely be playing Boucher even at 6,100. But I like, all these guys feel appropriately priced to me, but with, appropriately priced, but with some upside. So, and the reason I mention all of that is because I do think that it's time to get back onto Luka. There's a couple guys who tend to take him a little bit to get going. And I mean, one thing is Luka was 4 for 17 in his last game. He had 67 fantasy points. Now I know it was OKC, whatever. It was still a low scoring game. Luka, I don't know. He's playing well. He's shooting 17% from 3 this year. That's not going to last forever. You know what I mean? And you're going to see some 75s out of him in a hurry. Now, is it a good matchup with Van Vliet? Now, the weird part is actually, if he just posts him up, and maybe it is a good matchup in that sense, but Van Vliet's a really good defender. and they're a good team defensive team. They'll put Scotty Barnes on them. They've got a lot of guys and Mubi. They've got a lot of guys who can match up with him in different spots. But I do kind of have this interest in continuing to try to play Luka at these low prices, because I don't think it'll be very long before he's up near the 12K range again. And we know he has a massive ceiling. So I do think he's interesting. I just don't know. It's hard with all the other great plays on the slate to necessarily jump at Luka. But I do think he's definitely in play. And I don't know where I'll revisit that one at 6 p.m. because I am really interested in trying to take advantage of what perception is a big part of this. And like everybody thinks Luka, like, oh, he doesn't have his ceiling. I'm just like, look at the games, man. Like, and when he didn't get there was the blowout against New York. Now I know he played minutes. The blowout and Dallas shot, I think, what did they shoot? 10 for 50 or something from three. It's just not going to happen. So all of his assist upside was gone. And he's a walking triple double when they're making just their normal amount of shots. So with all that, playing at home, I do think Luka's a really good play. I just, there's a lot of them tonight. That's all I'd say.
So next game, big slate, 26 teams. That's like 250 guys to choose from. But I'm probably going to do a little of this. I'm probably going to do a little Shea and DeJounte Murray in the same lineup. They don't rate to be quite as good as some of the other plays, but they're in the same game. And I think I'm going to take a little shot at this. Now, again, this is early look stuff. So for whatever reason, I don't have Josh Giddey projected. I don't know why that is, but I'll fix that a little later. Giddey, I think he's actually always in play, but this is a very, very big slate. And then Dort, want to take a dart throw maybe, and really nobody else in San Antonio. So for me, I'm probably gonna take a shot at this a little bit. Maybe a Shea and DeJounte Murray in the same lineup.
Yeah, so I wanted to point something interesting out about this, is I agree with you completely. And I have three big lineups, and my three big lineups, one of them I'm definitely at the moment planning on having a Shea with DeJounte lineup. Now, point guard is the loaded position today, as well as shooting guard on FanDuel, but on DraftKings too. And I just want to point out, look at these guys he's gone up against Shea lately. Okay, so he had 52 against Dallas. What's his name? Luka had 67. Okay, against Cleveland he only had 41 because he shot 7 of 19. Garland had 60. So this is combining for 100 fantasy points, and right. at 84 and 97, these guys could combine for 100 plus. And you get Brooklyn out there, 65 for him. I believe Harden had 58 or 60 or something like that. So, yeah, and then even Washington before that, he had 49, and Dinwiddie, who was 6K at the time, put up 44. It's been this back and forth with the decent point guards in the league, and I think this is another spot where we should definitely get involved in this. Other guys who aren't going to, maybe rate to be incredible, but Giddey and Dort are in play. But I would rather just do the Shea and Murray thing. For some reason, I'm a little worried. OKC has been way more competitive lately, but this game kind of worries me for them. So I can kind of use that as a reason why not to go crazy with this idea. But I do love Murray and Shea. And I think that Derek White is a strong play on DraftKings. I think that Keldon Johnson is an overlooked play on both sites that could get you 40. So those are just the guys who I have, but the priorities for me would be to do a DeJounte Shea thing. Not just because I pointed out the recent game history, but that stuff has a when it starts happening every night against good point guards and tough games, then it starts to sort of pique my interest. And you sort of need the game to be close for Shea to get there, because Shea can put up like 28 fantasy points if the game, isn't close. So I like the idea of playing both of them more than I like playing one of them, if that makes sense.
Ingles, Clarkson, Conley, Gobert, and Bogdanovich are all projecting to be top 10 point per dollar plays in this next game. With Mitchell out due to concussion protocols. Yet I still feel as though what the spread's still going to be double digits, right? Even with Mitchell out.
13.5, yeah.
And just be careful. That's the best I can describe this. They're all going to be 20% owned, I think. What's that?
I think even more.
Well, I'm saying all of them are going to be more than 20.
Yeah.
Like you won't say, "Ooh, which of these guys can I get a low ownership?" Probably none of them. And Yeah, I mean, if you want to try to be cute, you want to play a bunch of them and run it back with Christian Wood or whoever. I don't know. I think if these guys get there, then I think that I don't think that it's a competitive game. You know what I mean? I don't think that you could play all 3 or 4 of those guys. I think you could play maybe 2 of them, but I don't think you'll get ceilings out of 3 or 4 of them. Because if you start to, then they're not going to get fourth quarter. I don't think. I don't know. But they're all going to rate to be good point per dollar plays. But I wouldn't play that many of them in the same lineup. And as I mentioned, on the Houston side, Christian Wood, probably the best play from Houston if that matters. That's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, I would take Kevin Porter Jr. as my favorite play from Houston, but I don't mind either. I don't like either of them enough to play them, but
Right.
those would be the guys I would play. And excuse me, the way I've got it rated. First of all, you couldn't have a better matchup for Gobert except for maybe the blowout risk.
Right.
I can't actually believe how high his ownership is projected today, though. This is a little bit extreme. Okay, for
What
a
do you
guy.
have in that? What do you have? I have him at 30.
Yeah, it's 36 on FanDuel, 43 on DraftKings, but probably 30 is going to be closer by the time the day's over.
Yeah.
It's still high for him at this price, and especially because he's projected to play 36 minutes, and he could play 32, he could play 30, he could play 28.
Yeah.
The lowest owned of the starting guys is going to be Conley, so I don't mind that playing Conley instead of Clarkson. Again, it suits Clarkson better. It's, high run and gun kind of a thing. And also like you get some of the blowout run, if not all of it. But I guess I have it ranked Clarkson, Conley, Gobert, Bogdanovich, Ingles. I actually do like Ingles, so don't get me wrong. It's just, there are a lot of bus paths and he tends to thrive more without Conley, oddly enough, instead of without Mitchell.
Interesting.
And it's not 100% across the board, but if you look at his numbers overall over the past 3 seasons, that's been the general trend that we've seen. So I wouldn't like he versus Melton is not a conversation. It's a non-starter. It's not even close. But if you wanted to play both those guys in a lineup and pay up elsewhere, I don't mind that either. And I think you can play these 2 Utah guys together potentially, or maybe even 3, but probably just 2. And you'd still have a good chance here. I just worry a little bit. I want to check on even who Utah has active, because we might see guys get a few spot minutes here and there, and that could sort of crush these guys. Because right now, Clarkson, I mean, that's a tough fade too. But I think Conley has the upside as well. So that's the way you fade it. You play one of Clarkson or Conley. You can play either one with Gobert, Bogdanovich, or Ingles. I probably would just do 2 at the moment.
Clippers against Jokic.
Yeah, this is another one of the playoff. These guys who met in the playoffs a couple years ago. Oh wait, no, did I get my series mixed up? Maybe I did. I don't know. I mean, the Morris thing again, like against Jokic here. I don't know what to do with it, to be honest with you. Actually, we just got news. That's really odd timing. So Batum is out, who I actually had as in. So that's going to change things a little bit. So why don't we revisit this one in a few minutes, because that is going to dictate some of the stuff for me. I don't know entirely that it means everything, but we still have Kennard questionable too. If he's out as well, you should get all the Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris usage. And then maybe Terrence Mann would slide back into our lives, or Bledsoe. Because I think that one of these guys has a game here, and it's hard to pick which one, especially Morris with the narrative and everything. I guess, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I still feel like a little nervous with it. I do have him a little interested on FanDuel at 5,800 for him, and Jokic 11.5, so it's easier to play both, and have like a nice little run back. But on DraftKings, it's hard for me to get to too much of this. I think it would go. I think I would go Jokic and then Barton as my favorites, but I certainly don't think you need to play either of them. There's a lot of guys I like tonight, but low 10K, but not much below 10K. So that's sort of how
is this a slate that you want to pay 12K for anybody? I mean,
well, who knows? We're going to get tons of value. I mean, it's almost a guarantee.
Yeah, but if we do, is it like I asked before? You know, if you told me there were 2 $3,500 guys, right, that come up along with Melton. Do you want to use that savings to get up to a 12K, or just get to a second 9,500 guy? You know,
That's a good question, but like I don't know. It depends on what the value is.
Right.
But I don't. I mean, it is a good question. I think that Jokic and Giannis do have the highest floors and ceilings in general, but yeah, there's plenty of other guys I like in the other ranges and ones that even correlate together too. So definitely not a must, but I do think Jokic will have a big game here. I think it's weird to fade a guy like his projected points tonight, fantasy points is 60, and he's 12.4. I think that's complete. I think I expect him to be at 60 or over. I expect Giannis to be at 60-ish.
Yep. Yeah.
So maybe it is good enough. It just there's other guys who are probably going to get to 60 as well in the 9K range. I guess that's what you were saying.
You like anything from this next game? The only thing I came up with was on the Sacramento side, barely. I mean, not even like Davis, Richard Holmes, maybe just the whole game just kind of was a dud for me.
I'm kind of interested in stacking this game and then seeing what happens. By the time 10 o'clock rolls around, you know what I mean? You could play the 10 o'clock strategy if you want to, if we do in fact get some more questionables, we want a Clippers starting lineup and things like that. But it is interesting though, because you have no Killian Hayes, which is not like the biggest deal because he's not a high usage guy, but Cade Cunningham didn't play, you know, because they got smashed. It's not like he played a crazy number of minutes. He's 27. It's on a back-to-back. I think that I still like him on FanDuel, especially because he's 6K. But Corey Joseph's going to start and actually has been productive, and it's his former team, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like he has the 35 fantasy point game, then he has the game like he did last time, the 10 fantasy point or 11 fantasy point game. But then it also, like, initially when I was looking at extra other value, like, is Saban Lee maybe a more interesting guy to take a shot on than Joe Ingles? And I was just considering it. I don't know where I stand yet. I think that obviously Ingles is the safer play, but Saban Lee could end up getting a lot of run tonight, regardless of game flow. So I have it ranked Cunningham, Joseph, Lee. I don't think I'm going to play Magruder at minimum. I think you're not going to rely on a guy to make just every shot. But on FanDuel, you want like Cunningham, Diallo, even Sadiq Bey is interesting. And it's a game that suits Josh Jackson, but it's just not the right kind of slate probably to do that. But every time I say that, the guy ends up going off. So on Sacramento, Terrence Davis, especially on FanDuel, but on DraftKings as well, is I think an interesting play. They priced up Fox and Hield because of no Halliburton and Mitchell, but Davion Mitchell like went nuts the last game. I'm not going to say you should rely on that, but there's no reason why if he gets run, he can't have a big game. So I'm mildly interested in everybody, but not especially dialed into anyone except for Terrence Davis on FanDuel. But I do think they're all interesting. Like, I just think that I don't know where I'm going to end up with how interesting they are. But that's sort of this, I guess, the nature of the slate. I think Buddy Hield, this could be one of those. This is a bad defensive team. Both teams are bad defensively, and Detroit does play a little slower for what it's worth. But I really could see this being, a potential good spot for medium value. The Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, Terrence Davis, on the Detroit side, the other guys, and then one of Lyles or Stewart will probably get there, but it's probably the kind of slate where we just say, you know what, I don't want to mess with that, Yeah. But we've seen it basically every night. It feels like one of them gets like 30, gets 6x plus. Rudy Gay is out too, by the way, now for.
Oh God.
Oh
goodness.
It's more Clarkson even.
And also some more Bogdanovich rebounds.
Yeah, well, the reason why I don't like that as much is because that means Gobert probably plays more minutes, and Gobert when Bogdanovich had the big games. Remember, it was the rebound games were without Gobert.
That's true.
So that's what worries me a little bit about Bogdanovich. What do you got with Indy and LA? Yeah,
so for I feel real bad, man. Brogdon can't get a freaking season together without getting injured. It sucks. He missed a bunch of games. He tried to come back like a week or so ago or two or whatever. He played like 10 minutes. I gotta presume for now that he's out, I suppose.
Yeah, I have him as out.
Yeah. But these guys are all priced okay. Like LeVert's not really that particularly cheap or whatever. But I mean, you didn't like any of it. I mean, like boy, oh boy, can you get away with playing Sabonis at 10-1 on this slate with like all these other guys? I don't know. Certainly no one's going to play him. It's certainly at 10:30. And if you got nothing else going on, you want to try a Sabonis LeBron. Hey, I'm not gonna talk you off it. But I want to talk about the Lakers for like a little bit. So part of my bonus clearing thing, I had to put a bet in, and I was watching the Lakers Utah game the other night. Now for a couple of reasons. Number one, I had a pretty good monster lineup that had left what you call Russ and Mitchell in the same lineup. And by the way, did you see that freaking dunk by Westbrook?
Yep, I think that's one of the best dunks of the season. Probably the best if you factor everything into it. And he wouldn't stop screaming for like 3 minutes afterwards.
Okay, you know what? He earned that technical. You know what I mean? Like it was perfect.
And then thankfully, finally, the refs didn't throw somebody. If the refs throw one more guy out of a game, Cade Cunningham got thrown out of a game the other day for waving to his fans and his family in the crowd.
Yeah.
Like,
so that was good for him. You could just tell basically like a whole season worth of just freaking whatever.
Yeah,
just unloaded on what's his name on Gobert there. And those I didn't quite get there in the mind, like 8 or 9 or something like that. It was pretty good, but I was watching it. I bring this up, and then I also was trying to clear a bonus. And when it's like 6 minutes to go in the game, the Lakers were down by 5, or down by 4, and the adjusted spread was Utah -5.5. I'm like, I'll try the Lakers. Screw it. And the Lakers ended up like getting an outright win. I don't think they give another point the whole rest of the freaking game. Yeah. But a couple of things I noticed. I was watching a little bit of that game. Number one is that with if Carmelo remains out, I mean, they do really look to Malik Monk, for a lot of scoring. And what's his name? Carmelo is he remains questionable, so I continue to watch that. And the other guy, I don't know if you watched that game, who's freaking just showing out for the Lakers was Stanley Johnson. Had just an incredible game. I mean, I don't know, you can't count on that to continue or whatever, but he was awesome. Like the bench was into it, the fans were into it. What's not the fans? The announcers were into it. So good on him. I don't know if he continues. The other thing I noticed is that the Taylor Tucker is pretty good too. But this wouldn't be the first time that what's his name went off against the Pacers. I think LeBron James. So I would take that. And look, I would be remiss if I did not bring up Mr. Lance against LeBron. If you can get Brogdon out and you need something new and you need to swap off of something and you're in the mood, it wouldn't be the first time that Lance Stevenson got pumped for a game against LeBron James if they gave him the run to do it. So I think he's a totally good long shot to him.
I love Lance for the giant tournaments. Like, I mean, I'm not going to play him in the 888, but I do think at 4,100, look, he could play 12 minutes and he could play 28 minutes. Yeah. And against these Lakers, especially with LeBron and like everything and just the way he goes, I'd still prefer him at home just because I think he does feed off that crowd. And with Duarte back, I think his minutes are going to be a little bit cut. Absolutely. I like this game, though. I like Duarte a lot.
Oh, okay.
I really like LeVert. I think LeVert, this is like the perfect matchup for him to get 50 fantasy points and potentially like 30 real life points. The difference, so what you look at is the usage without Brogdon is so much, LeVert's like almost 10% higher. It's like closer to 30 to 22 or whatever, 31 to 22 or something like that for the season. Lately, it's been a little bit more split between he and Sabonis. I would go LeVert over Sabonis today. I will have some Sabonis on DraftKings, on FanDuel at 94, but I do like LeVert a lot here. And I think there's a lot of ways for him to get there. I actually think Lance is the way that he doesn't fully get there. You know what I mean? That's what worries me, is they sort of are similar type of players and some of that run off the bench. But we were starting Dwayne Washington, and it was a low usage guy, and Justin Holiday. LeVert, Sabonis, and Duarte should one of those three should have a big game, if not more. And I do like what the Lakers are doing. I think that you're going to see I'm going to play Russ on FanDuel today. I know he's been bad. I know all these things. Look at the numbers for Russ every month, and I'll be playing him a lot next month, even with Davis back probably. Well, I'll probably have to wait and see who, when LeBron's out or whatever. But Russ's numbers January on are phenomenal every year. He always turns a corner. Maybe that dunk even gets him going a little bit. It was a big win against Utah for the Lakers for what's been a really frustrating season.
Huge.
So I'm kind of into the idea of playing him on FanDuel. He's 7,500 on FanDuel. He's not 9,300. So it's a big difference.
Right.
At 7,500, I think Russ can pay that off. And I think that there's a chance for him to get 50. So I like that, like maybe a Russ and LeVert type of thing or a Russ and Sabonis. I do like LeBron as well. But again, it's just about prioritizing. And if I'm going to play LeBron tonight, I like that he plays in the later games, but Jokic is 1,100 more and feels safe for a floor.
I don't know about that.
Jokic, you don't think is safe for a floor of 10 points higher?
I don't know. I just
7 to 10.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I would consider for the floor.
What are the spreads in these games?
LeBron's under 40, under 50 pretty regularly. Jokic has been under 50 one time in the last, 2 times in the last, I think, 18 games. The spread is the Lakers by 5 and Denver by 8.
That's it. Yeah. Okay.
But and we just got announced that Tyler Hero's out. So as good of a play as Jimmy Butler was, he's now the mega chalk and still a good play, which is going to make it harder to get the LeBrons in there.
Hey, it opens up some more possibility for maybe for Duncan Robinson, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought that was a long shot play, but I think that actually is kind of interesting. Like maybe just the minutes alone.
He gets his shots anyway, but still.
Well, he gets his shots only, but he gets them more with Bam and or Butler in the lineup. So actually, the specifically Lowry and Hero being out could actually benefit him potentially. So it's a kind of an interesting long shot play, actually. And I want to go back real quick and visit the Clippers situation and just get the update on Batum's what it has, because I do think that game has a little, because I'm interested in Jokic. I think I could try and play some things on the other side for the Clippers. I think mostly what it's going to do is just tell you to play Reggie Jackson, because Batum, they do run, like, he gets assists. They run some of the offense through him. Now he's a low usage guy in terms of like shooting the ball, but he's not low. He's not like, oh shoot, I lost my page. I'm going to grab this real quick and get the updated projections. Do you have anything on that one, or is it, you have a minute to run it?
Nah, I just got everything early.
Yeah. Let me just go back to that. Yeah, it's crazy. We're already hearing all this news in the morning while we're on air. It's going to be a pretty interesting slate.
All right, I got something to give out here. So I just noticed that there's actually a showdown slate for $25K to first for $15 entry on that Laker game. That is the Lance slate.
Ooh, Lance, I like that, Sheets. I like that idea.
Yeah, Lance and showdown when everybody forgets.
I'll be in on that one. I'll
play a couple. You know what I mean? I'll play a couple.
Yeah. By the way, D'Anthony Melton might have the best like projection I've seen. It's better than Freedom's was that day. He's got like a 10x projection now.
Right.
It's pretty nuts. I don't think I'm gonna have the Clippers. Yeah, I don't have the Clippers new stuff in yet. I do think the Batum being out though, that's and we still have Kennard is questionable. Like if he's out too, if they're gonna stay in this game, they're gonna have to mix in some of these other guys. And Kennard hasn't played since, he hasn't played this year. He's played this season, but not this year. But I think Terrence Mann could be a decent source of mid-tier value, and Reggie Jackson is interesting to me. But yeah, I can run through real quick some of my favorite plays, and there's a lot of them. But the real priority ones are going to be Butler, Melton, and I have Ja in there, but I don't think like you need to play Ja. But I do think he's one of the guys I want to get to. I like the Shea versus what's his name? Murray. I like the Jazz playing two of those Jazz. However, it shakes out, especially like if you could play a Conley and Bogdanovich will probably be the lower owned combination of them. But I think that's viable. Potentially Gobert and Conley, especially with Gay out. All these guys get even more of a boost. The Sacramento Detroit game, I have interest in to try and maybe make at least one of my lineups where I really try to focus on the Lakers, Indiana, Sacramento, Detroit, and then that Clippers Denver game, just because I think that you gain some value, and I think those games are all stackable in themselves. Chris Duarte, Jordan Clarkson, obviously a priority. I do like Kyrie in spite of all the guys I'm arguing against him, but I think you can pivot if your lineup's too chalky to a guy like Van Vliet. I do think Bam is a better play now than he was before, and I still like the Brown and Tatum thing as spend ups. And then right after that, I have Luka, Jokic, then Giannis, then Embiid, then Giannis. But they're all, I mean, look how many good plays there are tonight. It's just absolutely freaking crazy. On FanDuel priorities, a guy we didn't talk about who we probably should have, even though he's a lot more expensive on DraftKings, Ayo Dasongmu, really, really good player.
Chicago, right?
First team All-American last year. He's 5,800 on DraftKings. Now that's a little much, but he's 4,200 on FanDuel, and he's projected to play 36 minutes. He played 38 the other night, put up 50 fantasy points. He played 39 the game before that, put up 43 fantasy points. Hey man, if you're going to give him run, take away Lonzo and Levine, there's definitely a path for him to get there. I think it's better on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings, though. But Dasongmu, Conley, these are the FanDuel ones. Butler, Kyrie, Cade, Terrence Davis, a better play over there. Hamidou Diallo, who's not as interesting to me on DraftKings, but he's like 1,200 cheaper, I believe, or somewhere around there on FanDuel. Bogdanovich still. Harden is a great play on both sides, but now, I mean, on FanDuel at 10-6, you could really justify playing Harden and Kyrie together if you wanted to. But I think I would probably pick one. I do like Harden better on FanDuel and Kyrie a little better on DraftKings.
So just to kind of revisit this, just to talk about this Stanley Johnson game against, I wanted to get the actual numbers. So he played a full 25 minutes, including closing, against Utah. He was 7 for 9 from the field, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. He got 5 full personal fouls in 25 minutes. Perfect. You know what I mean? Like he made the most of his minutes. And I hope he'll be in the showdown lineup too. So
I would be very careful about that if Carmelo plays. I mean, he got minutes because.
Oh, no. None of this is happening if Carmelo plays.
Yeah.
No. If Carmelo plays, then Monk becomes less in play for me. And as does Stanley Johnson, almost becomes unplayable for me.
Yeah, I think Stanley Johnson is on the full slate, but not necessarily
on the full slate for sure, even on the showdown, whatever.
Yeah, and Monk got beaten up, the other day a little bit, but it's weird. His minutes are trending in the wrong direction, but that is kind of an interesting wild card play if you're going to make a late lineup. But it's not a guy I would try and prioritize in this slate. Maybe if you're playing the night slate or something. Anything else, Sheets, before we get out of here? I want to revisit is Deandre Hunter. I do think that I didn't give enough love to him, but I do think that he has a wide range of outcomes. So don't be surprised if you get your 18 fantasy points. Also, he put up 35. He's just a wide range of outcomes guy, and a really good real life player.
So just so you guys know, what's going to happen is we'll be live from probably 6 till about 6:30 because we'll take care of what we can take care of. But I know that Bobby's going to want to skedaddle. It's big day, a big 3 big buy-ins and stuff. So he wants to make sure to get that right.
He also got the nice 150 with 100K for first on FanDuel.
What do we got now?
It's a 150 on FanDuel with the 100K for first.
How many do you go in that one? 5?
I went 6 today. I usually go less on FanDuel, but I felt pretty good. I was up early and I was ready, and there's just so many good plays in this slate. I think getting some different exposure was the right way to go.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, good luck tonight, and we'll see you at 6 Eastern.